Hi to those watching in the Woodside and those watching online and everybody else. Glad we can be together. We're wrapping up today this 6-week series called Goodbye Busy, Hello Life. It's gone by so fast and it's been really transformative for me. I hope it has for you as well. In fact, I'm going to invite you to take out your teaching notes in your program and notice at the cover of your program there's a Post-it note. And the Post-it note is there for you to write down a thought, a phrase, or something that's helped you in this 6-week series, or maybe something that you'll hear today. I told you a couple of weeks ago what I wrote down: relentlessly eliminate hurry. It's become a new mantra for me, been transformative already, and I'm grateful for it. And you write down what is helpful to you. Keep it there as an ongoing reminder to live in a better rhythm kind of place of life. We've learned about busyness throughout these 6 weeks, that busy is what life sometimes is. So we're not saying you get rid of it altogether, but you discern between the doable and destructive busyness that can consume us. We've learned from Richard Swanson the definition of margin, that space between my load and my limits. And I'll confess to you that I knew I was wrapping up this week with the busiest week of the whole 6-week series for my own life. My limits were pressed in by the load. I knew it in advance, so I tried to carve margin out the week before, last week, and that helped tremendously, but there was no taking away the busyness of the past week for me. I'm a trustee at Bethel University, so we had quarterly trustee meetings beginning on Tuesday, going through Tuesday night, Wednesday through Wednesday night. It's also the time of year where we do a biennial convention across the nation. It was hosted here in collaboration with Bethel University's trustee meetings, so that we had our biennial denominational meeting, Converge Worldwide meeting, on Thursday night, Friday night. We installed a new president on Friday night. Really meaningful worship, meaningful teaching from those who were there, but my week was slammed. Remember that definition of busy? Slammed, put under all of that. And I was able to hear great messages, and one that really stood out to me was Tim Keller, and a message around the need for accountability. Many of you know Tim Keller. He pastors Redeemer Presbyterian Church in New York City, which I think is one of the great churches in America. And it was a church he founded many years ago. So I resonate with him and his journey and all that he's experienced. And in fact, he shared a cool story I'd never heard him share before, that in the early days when they were starting the church, he said to his wife that, "I'm going to overwork for 3 years." Kind of giving her a heads up. Just a little warning. It's going to be hard for 3 years, but after that, it's going to be great. When, of course, you know what happens. The 3-year passes. Many months passed after the 3 years, and nothing's changed because we're creatures of habit. In fact, his workload seems to be increasing, not decreasing. So she decides to hold him accountable for it. Coming home after work one day, there she is in their home at a table, and all of their beautiful wedding plates and saucers were on the table, and she had a hammer in her hand. He walks in the door, smash one of the wedding plates, and couldn't believe it. And he says to her, "What's going on?" And she said, "You promised that you would power under, that you would stop this incredible workload. You're not practicing the Sabbath. You're not listening to me very much." Smashes another plate along the way. He could see that she was perhaps a little upset, that this was a different kind of day for them, and that he better pay attention. So he did, and they sat down and had one of the most meaningful, deep conversations in their relationship that they had had for a very long time. Recalibrated, found better discipline, better rhythms for their life. And after a period of time, he decided to sensitively raise it again and said to her, "Man, you must have been really upset smashing all of our wedding plates the way you were doing." And she said, "Oh, I wasn't upset at all. I was just trying to make a point. All of those saucers that I smashed with the hammer, the cups were broken long ago. They were meaningless to me." And she was saying, be accountable for your life and what you say. She was reminding him to live with better life rhythms and the life rhythms that God made us to live in. I thought it was really creative. We need to hold each other accountable when it comes to busyness. Otherwise, we get lost in it. And God reminds us of it. In fact, my message today is remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. It's the rhythm to live by. In fact, you find the reminder of that command. You'll see it in your teaching notes. You can follow along there or just listen in if you want. It's Exodus 20, beginning at verse 8. "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter or your male servant or your female servant or your livestock or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. You know, when Jesus came, he didn't do away with the Sabbath. And yet many of us live as though he did. We just live the way we want to live, when we want to live it, how we want to live it, sometimes without taking heed to the rhythm that gets pronounced to us, commanded for us, an invitation for a day of rest. Now, Jesus did do away with Israel's way of observing the Sabbath and all of the regulations that they added to it that made it a burden rather than a blessing. And when it's a burden, we tend to avoid it, but God intended it for blessing. So my question today is, how do we understand the Sabbath, or how should we understand the Sabbath? And I want to give you 5 meaningful observations, life-giving observations from this command that was given to us so long ago. First, we read in verse 8, remember the Sabbath day. In other words, we should understand its meaning. And its meaning is rest. We could read it as remember the rest day. That Shabbat or Shabbaton literally in Hebrew means rest or cease or end activity. Or if you put it in a contemporary idiom, a common colloquial expression for our day, you could just simply say, knock it off, is the call for us. So to remember the Sabbath day means don't forget to take a day of rest. How are you doing with that in your life? Are you taking a day of rest? Second, the latter part of that same verse, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. We should understand that it's a different day. Holy means set apart or set aside. It's a day that's set aside from all other days. It's different. It's special. It's important. It's an imperative. And why? Well, we find the answer. Look specifically in verse 10. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. In other words, the rest is to be a purposeful rest. Not an aimless rest that you just let it be what you want it to be, but a purposeful, God-centered rest. That's the distinctive. On the Sabbath day, the special rest day, attention should be given to God in a way that's more concentrated, more focused than every other day. Yes, we think of God every day, and we should reflect upon God every day, but on this special day, it's more focused and concentrated. And you'll be glad to know that in my reflection about this and my study, I think there's room on the Sabbath day for you to take a nap. Isn't that good? I think there's room for that. I think there's even provisional clauses that would allow you to go play golf on Sabbath day. You're liking this message so far, right? I'm going in your trajectory right now. In fact, I think it's the kind of day that you can even watch football and take it in. It's fine, no problem. Or even go for walks or ride bikes, which I hope you do this day. Not too many of them left like this. But there's a point here. There's something deeper to this rest. That this kind of rest is not satisfied in leisure and recreation alone. It's a God-centered rest. It's a reminder that to just play will bring rest in some measure, but it will not be the rest that satisfies the murmuring in our souls that comes to us in just dealing with the daily demands and realities of life. Keep the day holy by keeping a God-centered focus. So how do you keep a God-centered focus? Are you doing it? And what does it look like for you? Third is found in verse 9. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. We should understand its rhythm. Work 6, rest 1. Work 6, rest 1. Work 6, rest 1. There's a rhythm. My son is a drummer. Our youngest son is a drummer. And when he was, we learned this about him as we were paying attention, just as soon as he kind of came out of the birth canal, he came out swinging, ready to go. And we just watched. It's amazing. He just was always banging. So by the time he was 2 years of age, he's banging on just about everything he can find. So we decided to be a little more intentional and put pots and pans out strategically placed in our living room. And whenever he wanted to go bang on something, he'd go over there and have a party unto himself. And we could see that this wasn't going away as he grew, so we decided to make a courageous decision in our lives and to buy him a drum set. I will tell you, in the privacy of our own home and the conversations I had with Carrie, we were thinking more like a flute would be nice, or a violin would be nice, not a drum set. And I don't know if any of you have had drummers in your home, but it changes your home. It's a bit loud. And he had this passion for drums. But as we observed him through the years, and by the way, we're going to go hear him tonight. He'll be playing drums in the Vesper services at Bethel at 10 p.m. tonight. Yeah, it's a long day. And I go with joy because I get to support the passion that God's given to him. And though he has this natural inclination, I will say to you that good rhythm comes by practice. It got better over time. And so it is with us. God created his world and his people with a rhythm. And what a gift it is. There's seasonal rhythms. Winter, spring, summer, and fall. We're people who live in the north here who love the rhythms of the seasons. They're beautiful. All of them are beautiful except for maybe one. You choose it. And that one actually is beautiful into itself. It's just too long. It's not the issue of the season. It's the length of the season. Wouldn't you agree with me on that? And then there are physical rhythms that God's given to us. The rhythm of inhaling and exhaling. We take for granted that gift. Can you imagine if we only got one of them? Join me in me. Just inhale, everybody. Just take it in. Even online, wherever you are. Inhale. Aren't you glad for the release? These are gifts. Don't take for granted the good gifts of rhythms that God has given to us. They're spiritual rhythms. So if you've been around here, you've heard it thousands and thousands of times, that our very purpose statement based on the Abrahamic covenant is all about a rhythm for life. That we want to be a community with open hands, receiving from God all that he wants to give, believing he wants to give us a lot. And with open hands, giving it away, believing you cannot outgive God. Now you think about your own life. The people who've impacted your life, shaped your life, influenced your life the most, they're people who have given away. Can you imagine if they didn't live in that rhythm? And there are some who choose to not live in that rhythm. They keep what they get. They become known as Scrooges to us. They're not pleasant people. They don't change the world. They don't influence the cultures in which we live. It's the people who live in the rhythm who take what they've received and give it unto others with generosity and humility and gladness that change the world. They change our lives. And there are vocational rhythms. Work 6, rest 1. And though we have a natural inclination to both work and to rest, good rhythm, that kind that really satisfies the longing of our deepest recesses of our souls, comes by practice. We get better over time when the discipline is in our life. The rest day should be 1 out of 7. It says 6 days, do your work. On the 7th day, rest unto the Lord. Work 6, rest 1. Say that with me. Work 6, rest 1. Say it again. Work 6, rest 1. Work 6, rest 1. We could do the 2-step. There's a rhythm. And we find in these meaningful observations from this passage, there's another one, the 4th in verse 10. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your male servant or your female servant, or your livestock, or the sojourner who is within your gates. We should understand its scope. It's for everyone. That everyone needs a Sabbath and everyone gets a Sabbath from God's perspective. Your whole family, your entire workforce should get a rest day. Even the livestock, it says here, which I suppose would be implied your pets. Give your pets a day off, would you? Look how you're treating your pets. Let them rest a little bit. And certainly your children should even get a day off to learn early on the discipline of this rhythm. You can see God is protecting us from abuse. In other words, there are some who might take a day off for themselves and find rest, but they make all the others in their sphere of influence work. And God says that you miss the point if you try to keep the business running by using your servants and your animals and your relatives and working them all the time. And I start to sit on this passage a little bit and think about how the culture has changed so much, because we come 24/7 culture, haven't we? We're just on all the time, all the time. So a day of rest may be any day, but we've lost something in it. We've lost the rhythm that God fixed in place for us to have. Are any of you old enough that you remember Sunday as a family day and what that was like? Because everything was closed, it was a family day. There was no place to go. Nothing was open for us. And so everybody was off, and we were together. My fondest memories as a child move into those Sabbath days, to be with Grandma and Grandpa. Some of my favorite memories of them are them coming over. We had our finest meal on Sundays. Did anybody else have that experience? You just had the biggest meal of the week was on Sundays as we came together, and we have watermelon seed spitting contests, things like that were just really, really fun. Great, great memories. So when I drive by Chick-fil-A, I don't get annoyed that they're closed on Sundays. Its founder, S. Truett Cathy, who just died in September, made that decision, interesting, isn't it, in this time and place, made that decision to close the place down so all of his employees could have a rest day. And he did it out of spiritual conviction. Even though not all of them were Christ followers or God seekers, he wanted them to be. And he felt the rhythm of even bringing that kind of prioritization of shutting the business down would give that rest to the company and to the people who worked for the company. And people would criticize him, saying, you're losing a whole day of sales. Think of the money you're losing. Let me just tell you, 6 days a week, the guy made mega billions of bucks. What was he going to do with all the money? There's something far more important than money. There was a rhythm for him. And I know we'll never go back to that in terms of cultural reality, but something's been lost in it. And I sat and just reflected and even researched the trends of jobs today and what's happening to us. Picked up 4 of them that I thought were really interesting. That jobs have become more insecure, so we work harder and longer in order to keep our jobs. It's our security. I found the trend that people are expected to put in lots of time, that it's become the norm in the marketplace to work above and beyond what would be expected of you again and again and again, not just occasionally in seasonal press times, but all the time. I saw that technology has changed how we work and rest, and we all know that to be true, that you can work anywhere, but what's happened is that we work everywhere, that our work hovers around us because of technology all the time. I saw the trend that traditional society said that you got meaning in life and your sense of identity through family, not work. And that today, it's being said of us that we define ourselves by deciding what you want to be and then attaining it, and then you'll find your significance. And you can see the huge pressure for work that's put upon us, because if work is our significance, then we have to give a full court press to figure out who we are. So let's just be reminded, we are not what we have, we are not what we do, we are not what people say about us, we are the beloved son and daughter of the living God. That's where we need to center ourselves. Rest is squeezed out because of the tyranny of the urgent. So all the urgent things consume us to the end that the important things can get lost if we're not careful. What point did God want them and us not to miss? Well, it's really made clear to us in the 5th meaningful expression from this text, verse 11. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. We should understand its inspiration and its intent. Its inspiration that God is the source of the Sabbath day and everything that has been created in it, including us and all that we have. And his intent for the Sabbath day is blessing. The point of the commandment is based on God's rest after creation. And so you find the complementary passage to this in Genesis chapter 2, verse 2. And on the 7th day, God finished his work that he had done. And he rested on the 7th day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it, God rested from all his work that he had done in creation. Why did he rest? He didn't rest because he was tired. He rested because it was done, what he had intended to create. He takes a step back to take in the beauty of what has been created for us and the good in it. Both Genesis 2 and Exodus 20 say that God blessed and made holy the rest day. So it begs 2 questions for me. First of all, what does it mean that God blessed a day? It's a little odd, isn't it, to say that God blessed a day? When God blesses a person, that person becomes rich with his presence. When God blesses land, that land becomes rich with his provision. When God blesses a day, the day and all that is in it, including us, become rich with his presence and his provision. He magnifies himself. Why is there so much doubt and skepticism about God being real in the world? Because we don't live in the rhythm to be reminded. Because he's given us the rest day, the Sabbath day, to make himself known to us. so that we can remember that he is the creator, that he is the source of all days and all things in those days, of who you are and all that you have. He is the source of it, you are not. And when we get out of the rhythm, we start to take his place and become God. We start to take control over our identity and what we have and why we have it. And we think it's about us. We lose the rhythm. When we observe Sabbath, what's happening is we're receiving him. He's magnifying himself. There's no better day in your life than you know that God is with you. No matter what you are going through, what you're dealing with relationships or circumstances that may be difficult. More difficult than you can feel like you can bear yourself. It's his presence that makes all the difference in the world to get through those kinds of experiences. And what does it mean for God to make a day holy? It means to set the day aside for a special focus on what is holy, on God himself. So when we observe Sabbath, we not only receive him as the source for all we are and all that we have, but we give him praise and honor and adoration. It's a purposeful, special day. A God-centered day, as we've learned together. And when you consider these two words together, that he blessed the day and made it holy, we see that he makes the day a source of blessing, and he set the day apart for us to focus on him. We receive what he creates, and we give praise for who he is. And if we can only receive, and if we only give, then we miss the rhythm of it. If you came today with a consumer mindset to say, what am I going to get out of this today? I hope it's something, or I'm never coming back again. Well, you may never come back again because you came with just a piece of the rhythm. But God always has something for us, but not just to be received, but for us to give back unto him. Praise, adoration, and glory. When you observe the Sabbath and make it holy by giving your attention to God, then you'll receive more blessing than if you keep busying yourself 7 days a week in the working enterprise with the hope that production and advancement of your job, that recreation and money are the route to true happiness, and you're disillusioned. You can pursue all those things. You can do well in your career. You can have all the financial resources. You can have recreational activities abounding in your life and still feel like, man, there's something missing. And we get to the root of what's missing on the rest day, the provision of his presence and blessings that come in the fullness of a day. And so we find that the true happiness doesn't come from things. They can't satisfy the way the Sabbath can, as God intended it to be. So do you embrace the command to Sabbath and receive the invitation to rest? Only you can answer that. It does beg the practical question, well, how do I do Sabbath? And I want to break it out into two parts. I mean, this could be really another series unto itself, but I'm going to talk about internal disciplines just so briefly and external disciplines ever so briefly, but they're important, especially on the internal side. So I don't get to the external alone because we tend to make this about external things, about do's and don'ts, but the internal disciplines. Because anything you try to do as a practice for Sabbath is not going to be enough. It's only Jesus that satisfies that rest that is the longing of your soul. And it's such an incredible gift that he gives to us. Let me give you three of them. Sabbath is restorative. Listen to what Jesus says in Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I know all too many of you all too well to know that you carry the weight of the burdens that are real, and they are real in your life. And it's on the rest day that we're reminded not to carry them alone, but to put them at the foot of the cross and to realize that his yoke is easy. My burden is light, Jesus says. And so he's restoring us from the damage done by life's burdens when we live in the rhythm of working and resting. Secondly, Sabbath is an act of liberation. We find the scriptures say, remember, you were slaves in Egypt. Now you are free. We're reminded of the freedom that we have on the rest day. Otherwise, we live like slaves. You know, slaves didn't have a day off. And some of you live that way. You don't give yourself a day off. You can't rest. You're always too busy. You can't say no to people because you're a slave. That's what this passage is saying. Whether that's self-imposed because you have certain needs that you feel you have to have met through other people so you can't say no. Or maybe it's through expectations of family and friends and colleagues that just keep you going all of the time. But you have to come to the inside place of your heart where you realize that a rest day is an act of liberation, that my work does not define me, that Christ defines me. Therefore, I'm taking a day off. Isn't that cool? So when somebody says to you, your boss says to you, I really need you to be over the top on this deal, and it's just like it's ongoing all the time, and you go, yeah, that's great. I'll do what I can with it, but I got to take a day off. And he says, why? Just tell him. God told me to. See what he says. Might open up the door for conversation. I don't know. Don't get lost in the expectations and demands of everybody that's around you. Rest. God rested, and we rest in order to honor the image of the divine that is in us, to remind us that there is more to us than work. He's liberated us. So let's stop acting like slaves. We're free people. Third, on the internal side of it, is Sabbath is an act of trust. In other words, I don't keep the world running, do you? We have to be mindful of that. Nor do I meet my own needs, do you? We need to be mindful that it's God who runs the world. He meets our needs. Can be over just like that. This life on earth. He's sovereign over it all. And so we would depend on our own understanding if we choose not to live in the rhythm of rest. Psalm 37:3. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will do this. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Sabbath reminds us to trust God's work more than our own. And we need that. I love this passage. Oh, rest in the Lord. Wait patiently for him, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Who's going to give you the desires of your heart but God? But it's when you're resting, you come to understand that his desires are the desires that he fulfills. But his desires become your desires. They may be different than what you originally wanted, but they're always better. And it's our rest place that allows his desires to become our desires, which he is glad to satisfy and meet in journey. And then external disciplines, well, you could have a list of 100 here. So what do you say? I mean, obviously, remember God by coming together in worship. It's one of those rhythm places that he intends for us. Guard your heart from leisure that's absent of God. That you have leisure in your life and you think you're resting, but God isn't part of it. Remember, it's God-centered kinds of rest that we're talking about. Which, by the way, in this coming together, it's important to not let your feelings define this for you, or your children define this for you. I don't always feel like coming in the gathered expressions of worship. I will say 95% of the times I'm all on board. I can't wait to get here. I look forward to today, but I have my margins too. When I get pressed in, I go, I'm not sure I want to go today. I say, Carrie, will you go for me? She's never said yes. I shall do it. I shall come. So I show up. Aren't you glad I come, though? I mean, it would be a different expression along the way, wouldn't it? I mean, if we just, here's my point. We don't always feel like doing what's right. But if I make my decisions on the basis of feelings, what would my life look like? Not just this, but all the rest of my life. What would it look like if we don't base on what is the right thing to be about in living in God's rhythm? We'll make it all about us. It's a special blessing that he has for us. And I find that those brief times when I don't feel like coming, that I come, it's like God has the right person that says the right thing. And I leave so glad that I'm here. Have you ever had that experience where you go, I don't think I want to go today. And then you come, and then you go, I needed to be here today. Because God does something when 2 or 3 are gathered in this decision. So we find that he surprises us, and it's a good thing, to avoid those temptations that draw us into worldly delights and to center on him so we don't lose our compass. Each Sabbath day, I seek to open up the Word of God. I love the Word of God. I read it. It speaks to me. It guides me. It gives me direction. It gives me comfort. It gives me all those things. I'm lost a little bit when people say, why do you read that book? It means nothing to me. And I think it's just because I'm so disciplined in reading. The rhythm of God's Word speaks to me, and it does to you as we live in those disciplined rhythm places where we reflect on the Word and we pray. We thank him for what we've received and what we give away. There's a personal note for me in this as well. And my Sabbath day is not this day. I just tell you that. For me, this day is going to be a 12 to 14-hour day. That's my day. And I'm doing all kinds of things today, and I look forward to it. It's very full, very demanding, but God is my strength in all of it, and I embrace it. But it's not my Sabbath day. My Sabbath day is Friday. That's when my rest day is. And even though I wish I could be together with all of you on Friday, because I think that's an expression of Sabbath day, for me, it's the rest day when I get to go to the deep places of my soul. But a year and a half ago, I started to do something that's really changed who I am. I'm abstaining from technology on Fridays. Don't try to call me. And they go, how can you do that? You're the pastor of the church. What if there's an emergency? Well, I've put provision for that. So the chairman of the church and the executive pastor on our staff can get a hold of me on Friday if there's an emergency. How do they get a hold of me? I'm not telling you. I'm not going to return calls. I'm not going to return emails. I'm not even going to read them. It has been so liberating because work is with us all the time. Find places to abstain from technology. Shut it down. Hebrews 4:9 says, here remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from their works, just as God did from his. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest. Make every effort. You sense the urgency, the intentionality. He's not casual or passive about it. Do whatever you want. No, it's not that way. Don't do whatever you want. It says here, make every effort to enter that rest so that no one will perish by following their example of disobedience. Because that disobedience of getting out of rhythm will lead to months of disobedience of getting out of that rhythm, to the end that you don't even think about God. He goes off your radar. There's a God? Who says there's a God? It's not part of my life. When we don't live in the rhythm, we forget God. That's the result. What an amazing statement. To look at your work the way God looks at his work, to look at your life the way God looks at his life, and he looks back, he takes it in, and he says, it's done, and it's very good. He intended it for benefit, for blessing. Friends, what makes us weary is not the work that we do. It's the absence of rest, where we miss the rhythm of restorative presence and provision of God. So I have a glad confession. I need the Sabbath. Do you? And learning that discipline makes us better over time to see how he's in our midst and providing for our every need. Rested bodies are more inclined to be in touch with God. We're less stressed in our daily journey. We're aware of healthy boundaries for our own emotional well-beings, and our relationships are more enriched. This is a day of blessing, not of burden, which is reinforced by the great prophet Isaiah in Isaiah 58. If you turn back your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight and the holy day of the Lord honorable, if you honor it, not going your own ways or seeking your own pleasure or talking idly, then you shall take delight in the Lord. Look at this. And I will make you ride on the heights of the earth. Isn't that cool? I'm an adventuresome kind of guy. I want to ride on the heights of the earth. And if it's rest that allows me to ride on the heights of the earth, I'm going to do what God asks me to do. Because that tells me there's no other ride that compares to the ride he's going to give, but to best live in his rhythm. So what should we do on the Sabbath? Well, whatever your take is on the specific do's or don'ts, and I know your list can be long, on this special day, I hope we can all agree that God has made us from the dust to need regular times of rest. He built it in the creation order, not to punish us, but to bless us. So thanks for coming today. The blessing of the Lord is with you. Would you stand and let's close together in prayer. Thanks, Father. Your goodness and grace is beyond measure, and thanks for the reminder to live in the rhythm that you intended for us. To work, which is good. You gave us hands to do that. But to rest at the deepest recesses of our soul, we'll find the restoration of your presence, to the end that we can open our hands to receive all that you have for us, and then with open hands, give you praise, honor, and glory. Thank you for the Sabbath.